Welcome back to another book review, guys. Today we're going to be talking about Black Fortunes by Shomari Wills. Those of you who are unfamiliar with Shomari Wills, Shomari is a correspondent on CNN, oftentimes Good Morning America. He is a journalist by trade. He's a Morehouse man, and he wrote this book, Black Fortunes. I'm only going to read one part here in the very beginning because I think it'll set the tone for this video. This is part of the introduction, right? So this is Shomari's words. He says, "The creation of black wealth is an important but overlooked subject in the economic and social history of the United States. African Americans were treated as property during slavery and were stripped of their economic and social personhood, reduced to commodities to be controlled, managed, bought, sold, underwritten, and leveraged." Skipping along, ... "Early in our country's history, African Americans who achieved wealth were often attacked, demonized, or swindled out of their money by those who knew the Jim Crow court system would offer no redress to a black person." And he goes on in the prologue to talk about the life of William Leidendorf, who was the first black millionaire. He made his money in real estate, and he had his fortune swindled away from him, I think is a good word, because his heirs were unable to read and write, and basically someone was able to come along. A European settler was able to come along and get them to sign over the estate for pennies on the dollar of what it was actually worth. And I want to start off. I decided to make this video and pick up this book because a lot of people have recently been talking about Jay-Z becoming the first black, not first black billionaire, but first billionaire rapper. We live in the era of the billionaires and trillionaires. Oprah Winfrey, I think, was the first African-American billionaire, shortly followed after by Michael Jordan, NBA player, and Robert Smith, investor and hedge fund manager, or maybe venture capital. But this book tells a story of 6 black entrepreneurs. And I'm going to try, I actually wrote them down because I know I'm going to forget their names, but Mary Ellen Pleasant, Robert Reed Church, Annie Malone, O.W. Gurley, Hannah Elias, and Madam C.J. Walker. And this book, I give this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I always had this dream of starting a school, I guess like a charter school of sorts, for young men of minority descent, black, Hispanic, whatever. And the school would be focused on like entrepreneurship and stoicism, and maybe also maybe military training as well. And it's sort of like this fantasy school that I really hope one day I will be able to start. And if that ever happens, this book will absolutely be part of the curriculum of that school. It's a junior high and high school, right? And so, in my imagination. But I wanted to talk about some of the lessons of this book and some of the takeaways and some of the stories of these black entrepreneurs, because we live in a time of tremendous opportunity, and reading this book really puts things in perspective. One of my mentors, if you were, Gary Vaynerchuk, he always says that if someone who looks like you has done it, you can do it too, right? So there's all excuses. Everyone has excuses. And as you read these stories, man, you realize we have it good in 2019, all the opportunity, the technology, anyone can just start an online store for pennies on the dollar. You can drop ship, different products from China. You don't even have to really risk too much capital. There is so much opportunity. And social media, right? You used to have to pay a lot of money just to be able to distribute your message. Now you can do this organically. Pay for Facebook ads, $5 for a Facebook ad, right? There's so much opportunity. And I'm not going to talk about all of these people, but I do want to talk about a couple of them in particular. And I'm going to start with I'm going to start with Mary Ellen Pleasant because she is tremendously inspiring. She was a slave in Nantucket who received her freedom. She worked for a family that was very generous to her, and they allowed her to work in the store. And she was basically a retail salesman, right? And she sold retail. And during her time as a store salesman, as a retail person, I'm sure there some of the people who are watching, you might have a retail job, right? She learned the art of personal connection. And she learned basically how to make people your friend, how to get people to trust you. And she was able to carry on this skill, which gave her, it just dramatically benefited her later in life when she moved to California and was able to use these same skills to be a money lender, to be a silver salesman, right? She had relationships with silver people, was selling silver and brokering silver, right? But she credited her ability to talk and build personal connections to that success. Robert Reed Church, he was the descendant of a white captain and his concubine, a black slave and female slave, and he grew up on the ship, and he had to live with his father, but his father wasn't really allowed to acknowledge that he was his son, right? But his dad still tried to instill in him, he said to him, don't ever let someone call you a nigger, right? That's what his dad said to him. And so he still tried to instill in him the pride of the fact that you are a church. And he goes on to move to Memphis and become a big real estate mogul in Memphis. But the lesson that you can take away from his story is to be greedy when others are fearful. I've talked about this in my investment videos, right? Right after this big fire that had taken place in Memphis, Church went and bought up all the property on Beale Street, which if you've been to Memphis, you know Beale Street is popping, right? So he was able to acquire this underpriced real estate, and he was able to build it up. The last gentleman I'm going to talk about is someone who's very special to me, and coincidentally, I'm wearing my Oklahoma shirt. O.W. Gurley. He was I don't know if he was a slave, but he was a man who lived in Arkansas and moved to Oklahoma during the land rush. He helped set up what became known as Black Wall Street. And Black Wall Street was a place in the Greenwood district of Tulsa. I look forward to maybe talking about this in future videos, being that I'm from Oklahoma. This is something that's very special to me. But what was interesting about his story, besides the success and the story of Black Wall Street, you can Google that. I'm not going to get into that. But he went by O.W. Gurley because going by his full name would have labeled him as black, right? And I thought this was really interesting because this is a trend with a lot of famous and successful black entrepreneurs and politicians, really. So T.W. Shannon, who was Speaker of the House here in Oklahoma, his real name is Taharone Wayne, and he also abbreviates his name. And J.C. Watts, who was a congressman from Oklahoma, Julius Caesar Watts, he also abbreviated his name. And I think there is something to be said about name and people's names and its impact on their ability to achieve, and even to this day, right? Like T.W. Shannon, this is very recent. And I'm sure that he has reasons for why he went by TW, whatever the case may be. And I wanted one last person that I want to talk about is Madam C.J. Walker. No, I'm sorry, not Madam C.J. Walker. Annie Malone. Annie Malone. Annie Malone was a black female millionaire who she had a line of hair products. And she showed tremendous persistence through adversity. And she went to this, in the book it explains in more detail, but she goes to this festival. I don't remember if it's Du Bois or Frederick Douglass or some black leader during the time is having this convention, and she wants to sell her hair products, and he rejects her to be present at this convention. And she basically has to just keep trying and persisting to convince him to allow her just to establish a booth and be able to sell her product. And then she got swindled by, her own husband or her boyfriend. I don't remember what it was, but she got played by one of her employees who ran off with her product and her husband at the time. And she really just persisted through, and through her actions, she demonstrated what it means to persist through adversity. And I guess I just want to end it there, because I really want to encourage anyone who's watching this book. You know, you don't have to be black to want to get this sort of this history, because there is a lot to be said. You know, I mean, black people are as much a part of the American fabric as anyone. We came over here as slaves, and we are part of the narrative of America as much as the J.P. Morgans, the Vanderbilts, the Andrew Carnegies, right? These were very successful entrepreneurs who built the foundation of America in capitalism and entrepreneurship. And the story of black entrepreneurs is often overlooked. And so I want to encourage everyone to enrich your own life by learning about this, and learning how through the court system, how fortunes were wiped out through systematic oppression of Jim Crow, how Black Wall Street, the most prosperous area of black business in the United States, was completely burned to the ground, and no reparations were made. It's humbling, and I'm excited to share just my thoughts about this book with you all. Please, I love hearing from you guys. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you've read this book. I'll have a link, an Amazon link, if you want to pick it up, and that is an affiliate link. The book doesn't cost more if you click on it, but it does help me continue to build this channel. If you want to buy this book, please click on that affiliate link. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.